Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the show. Welcome back to the Music Dungeon with me, mackplaysbanjo. Now, one of my more recent videos was a review of Roy Clark by me, where I went in and I reviewed his playing because he was in a list of the 9 best banjo players and then the 35 best banjo players that I reacted to in some other videos. You can go watch those on my channel. And I didn't think that he deserved to be on those lists. Not because he's a bad player. He's not. He's pretty dang good, actually. But you need to be way more than pretty dang good to be in those lists, because there are a lot of banjo players who are phenomenally good, which I hate to break it to you, he's not. But I said my opinion on his playing in that video very politely, very, very refined. I mean, it sounds like I'm joking, but I do think I was actually pretty kind in that video. Oh boy, did that video take off. It currently has something like 120, 130 comments on it, I think. And most of them are very, very angry that I think that Roy Clark isn't one of the best banjo players of all time. Why anyone would get mad about my opinion on Roy Clark's banjo playing, I don't know. But I thought what I'd do today is just explain my argument a little bit more and do a little bit of comparison between Roy Clark and another player who I think exemplifies what his playing could have been if he really took it seriously. Because obviously he does not lack for musical ability. But I don't think he ever practiced banjo enough to get past basic competence with it. And I'm going to explain why I think that is with that comparison. I'm also going to watch a video that someone recommended. It's Roy Clark playing Malagueña on a specific TV show. I'll look at the comment to figure out which video to watch specifically. I read through a lot of the comments and I was hoping for other examples of his playing that people would suggest that I react to, but there really weren't any. A lot of people were angry that I was reacting to him on Hee Haw, and I went and looked and I couldn't find any videos of him playing banjo other than Hee Haw. And that's just the way it is. Like, we can go and look on YouTube right now and they're all Hee Haw clips. There's this. I watched part of that, but I don't think that's a fair representation of his playing, because this was when he was later in life. This is a TV show. This is the video that I'm gonna watch. Roy Clark, guitar wizard from the show The Odd Couple. A couple people recommended that I watch that. Now, it's not him playing banjo, but it is him playing guitar. So I'm assuming that he will be really, really good at guitar in this, because I think he was primarily a guitarist rather than a banjo player. But yeah, I don't think it was unfair for me to watch. Oh, what's this? Speak of the devil. No, I don't think it was unfair for me to watch videos of him on Hee Haw, because that's literally, I look up Roy Clark banjo, I look up Roy Clark best banjo, it's literally all Hee Haw. So yeah, anyways, I just watched the most popular videos on YouTube in the last one, and that was that. So in today's video, let's just get right into it. I'm going to compare this video, Roy Clark, Buck Trent, dueling banjos, with another video with another banjo player who I think plays it better, and then I'm going to explain why I think that banjo player plays it better than Roy Clark, and why I don't think he's one of the best of all time. Now, before we start, what makes someone good at an instrument? That's a really big question, but some of the things that I can just think of off the top of my head. First off, your timing. So in this music, basically, how well can you count to 4? But how well can you control how your instrument plays in time? Can you play in time really well? Are you always rushing or dragging? Second up, there's how clean you can play. That doesn't mean you have to play clean all the time. I think not playing cleanly can sometimes be a great expressive decision, but you should be able to play clean. And I guess you could also pair that with your technique. How difficult of pieces can you play, and how well can you play them? Are there tons of flubbed notes? Are you not letting notes ring out as long as they should? You can have someone who's a pretty good banjo player and everything, but they don't play clean, and it's just really painful to listen to, because they're just messing it up, and then their interpretation of the piece is really, really bad because they just don't have the facility in their hands to make it sound as good as it should. Then you have your dynamic control, or how well you can control how loud and soft your instrument gets. And you have your tone, how good the tone is with your instrument. That's not just if you have a better banjo, you'll have better tone. That's not necessarily true. There's a lot of tone that goes into how your hands lay on the instrument, where you pluck the strings. All these things can get you better tone, so the best players will generally have the best tone. Then you have understanding of the instrument, which is kind of a big amorphous thing, but you can kind of tell how well someone understands the instrument when they play. For example, if someone is just playing an Earl Scruggs break note for note, maybe they have great understanding of the instrument, but you don't know because they're just playing an Earl Scruggs piece. But if they improvise a break on an Earl Scruggs piece, and I can hear all sorts of different ideas coming from the whole history of the banjo that has gone into their playing to create their own style, you can tell that they've really studied it a lot more and have a detailed interpretation of the music that they then put on their banjo. And then kind of last thing I can think of is just the quality of their musical ideas when they improvise. And I couldn't find any videos of Roy Clark improvising on banjo, so that's not really going to be important. But when you're improvising, when you're composing, some people just have better musical ideas, and that comes from study, that comes from practice. The less studied and less practiced you are, the worse your musical ideas will be on the instrument, whether that's composing or improvising. So the better you are, generally, the better your musical ideas are. Now, this is an incomplete list, and it wasn't in any particular order or anything, but I think that just kind of serves as a good framework, and that's kind of how I look at a banjo player's playing to determine how good they are. So if they're really good at all those things, they're a really good banjo player. If they're pretty bad at a lot of those things, then they're not that good. That doesn't mean they're not a good musician. That doesn't mean they're not a good person. That doesn't mean that they're not entertaining. That just means that they're not a great banjo player. And they could be pretty good and still not on a list of the 35 best banjo players, because in order to be on the list, you have to be phenomenal in all of those things. So let's watch this video. We watched this in the last one, but just stick with me because I'm going to compare it to another one, and we'll talk about how we determine how good these players are. So let's watch this. So first thing to listen for was the first item on my list, timing. Are they rushing, are they dragging, or are they right in time with each other? So try and pay attention to that. Now, I know this is a comedy skit, but this is what we have, and the other video I'm going to be looking at is also a skit from a TV show, so I think it's a fair comparison. Now, this is a good demonstration of the cleanliness or technique thing I was thinking about. You can listen to his notes, and none of them are really flubbed. They're all ringing out like they should. They all sound clear. None of them are like buzzy or anything, or more buzzy than they have to be on this banjo. But yeah, so far pretty good. Their timing is pretty locked in. The cleanliness is pretty good. Okay, there was a flub note there, and that's fine. I don't really care. I'm just pointing that out as a demonstration of what a flub note sounds like. So listen for that. So he flubbed that note. He didn't let it ring out as long as he could. His string wasn't, his finger was on the wrong part of the string, basically behind the fret. And that's not really a big deal. That's just a demonstration of something bad in the cleanliness department. So, yeah, that was pretty good. Again, it was fine, and there was nothing mind-blowing about it. There was nothing on there that would have me put him on the list. It was fine. It was mostly clean. Some of the notes were not as good as he could have made them, I don't think. Their timing was fine, but not crazy. All of the stuff was just fine. And that's great. You know, there's nothing wrong with being fine, especially when you're doing it for a TV show. Nothing wrong with that. But again, being fine does not mean that you're one of the best banjo players ever. So if I was going to go through the list and just kind of explain my thinking when I watch Roy Clark play, why I don't think he's one of the best of all time. First off, his timing, it was pretty good. I have no complaints about that. Second off, the cleanliness, it was pretty clean. There were definitely some flub notes in there, and a lot of the notes did not ring out as long as they could have. It's not a huge deal. Again, I wouldn't really care, except that he's supposed to be the greatest banjo player of all time. The greatest banjo player of all time, all of those notes would have rung out perfectly, as you'll see in a second when I show you this video. Third, dynamic control. Didn't really show any dynamic control in this video. It was pretty much just full blast the whole time, which doesn't mean he can't do it. I'm sure he can. But there was no evidence of that in this video or any of the other videos that I had found to watch. Everything was pretty much just full blast the whole time. His hand stayed right by the bridge, which is fine, but he's not getting any tonal variety for expressive purposes. Then there's understanding of the instrument, and he didn't really show a phenomenal understanding of the instrument here. He was pretty much just playing the same stuff that was played in the original recording of this song and every other recording of the song since. Pretty much just the same Earl Scruggs rolls, the same melody, everything. There was no improvisatory aspect, really. Then the quality of musical ideas, which is not applicable here because, again, he wasn't improvising at all, which is fine, and I think it's appropriate for the TV show. But again, nothing about him just playing that by rote shows that he's a phenomenal banjo player, at least by professional standards. Okay, now we're going to watch this video, Glenn Campbell and Carl Jackson Dueling Banjos, 1973. Now this is the exact same thing pretty much, except there's a guitar and a banjo instead of two banjos. This is Glenn Campbell and Carl Jackson. They're playing the same song the Buckturn and Roy Clark were, and they're also doing it on a television show. So this is pretty much as fair a comparison as you can get. And we are going to pay special attention to Carl Jackson's banjo playing here. And I want you to listen to how good his time is, how good his tone is, how all of his notes ring out, and there aren't any flub notes. I don't think there are. I haven't actually watched this video in a long time, but I remember it being very clean. I want you to listen for stuff that was not on the original recording, and if there are new musical ideas, how well do they fit the piece? I know that's a lot of stuff to think about, but I'll point out everything as we go along. Okay, so the first thing I want you to listen for is how clean all of Carl's notes are. Are there any notes that are flubbed, or are they all crystal clear? How long do they ring out? Does it sound like his hand is muting them unintentionally? All that sort of stuff. So no flubbed notes so far. He's playing it very clean. Also, something that is a little bit more subtle, but I think is really impressive, is he's playing the melody and some other drone notes at the same time, but he's playing the melody a lot louder, if you listen to that. Hear how he has the dun 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 dun, but he also has another note that he's playing at the same time. That note is way quieter so that it's not messing with the melody. That's some pretty impressive dynamic control, which is another thing I was talking about. So he's putting a lot more power behind the finger that he's playing the melody with than the finger that he's playing the drone note with. That's some pretty good dynamic control. And again, it's super clean. So definitely some good stuff here. So before we get into the fast part, let's just take a little review. So their timing was great. Carl's playing especially. Carl didn't flub any. He clearly has great dynamic control. His tone is very good and super clean. So for the list that I had, which by the way is not like comprehensive, it's not anything like that. Those are just some of the things that I think about first when I'm trying to assess how good a banjo player or just musician is. Carl is doing really well at a lot of those. He's doing really well at timing. He's super clean. His tone is very good. And his dynamic control is clearly very high level. So he's already doing really well on all four of those things. Quite a bit better than Roy did on any of those things. Now, Roy was good, but Carl is just doing a better job of most of them here than Roy was. Okay, so that was an original idea. And by original, it may not be like maybe Carl didn't make that up, but that's not typical when you're playing dueling banjos to hear that, right? That's one of those new musical ideas that he's introducing into the piece, which shows that he has understanding of the form and the instrument. My point is that he's just not playing the same break that almost every banjo player plays, like Roy Clark played, like the other guy who was playing banjo there with Roy Clark played. They were just doing very standard stuff. Carl is putting in new interesting ideas, which again shows that he's maybe at a higher level than Roy Clark. Yeah, and Carl's timing and technique is still holding up at this higher tempo, which is very impressive. And he's still holding that really great dynamic control between his fingers at this higher tempo, which is again super impressive. Tells me that he's clearly a serious player. Again, he's still no flubbed notes, great timing, great dynamic control, even at the really fast speed. That last run was so Carl Jackson. So yeah, for all of these reasons, I think that this performance of Carl Jackson's was of better quality than Roy Clark's. Does that mean that Roy Clark's was bad? No, but I think that Carl Jackson's demonstrates better facility on the instrument, which again is what I'm concerned about with reviewing banjo playing. So anyways, I hope that this comparison was helpful in elucidating what I was trying to say in the last video. Does Roy Clark suck? No, absolutely not. He's pretty good, but he's not one of the best players in the world. And while there is a lot more that goes into being really good at an instrument than this list that I have, this was just kind of off the top of my head the things that I look for when I'm trying to evaluate a certain player's playing. Carl Jackson, I think, just put in more time into the instrument and so had a stronger performance in this instance. So anyways, that was my Roy Clark explanation video. I hope that this comparison helped explain why I was a little bit critical of Roy in the last video. I wasn't critical of him, I don't think. I was just critical of him being placed on the lists of 9 best banjo players, 35 best banjo players, because I don't think he should be on those lists from pure technical ability. And if you disagree, that's fine. That's totally fine. This is my opinion. These are the things that I value in a player. And I think being really good at these things that I've talked about are what should get you on the list, not being really entertaining or playing a bunch of different instruments. I think it's these things on the banjo that should get you on a list of being a best banjo player. So anyways, I hope that helped. And about the video of Roy Clark playing Malaguena, I'm not going to do that in this video because I've been recording for quite a while and I don't want it to get too long. I think this is probably enough for the video, but I will make that video of me reacting to Roy Clark playing Malaguena because I saw a couple people asking for it. So watch my channel in the next couple days, I'll get that out. But anyways, I hope this helped, and thank you for watching. I really appreciate it, and I hope you have a great day. So I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.